Ken Basinger.
Hello. Okay. Is there any public comment on items not listed on the agenda? No. You've got the adoption of the Historic Review Board minutes from June 8th and July 13th. Would anybody like to make a motion on those minutes?
We approve the minutes.
There's a second?
Second.
Okay.
Do we want to do one motion for both minutes, or?
Yes.
Okay. Ms. Holtz?
Aye.
Mr. Basinger?
Aye.
Ms. Yates?
Aye.
Chair McLaughlin?
All right. Okay. The next item on the agenda is HR 10-5. No.
Okay.
Adjacent to 519 13th Street, construction of a new house in the McLaughlin Conservation District.
Thank you, Chair McLaughlin. If you want, you can toggle your screens and watch the PowerPoint presentation that I'll be doing. The applicant is here this evening, and let me know when everyone's ready.
I'll say, very good.
This is the HR 1005, which initially was presented at the June meeting. It opened, but continued to the July meeting where the substantive information was presented. And the Historic Review Board gave direction back to the applicant to redesign some aspects of the building, and the applicant has submitted those designs, and I'll walk them through with you and go through some of the outstanding issues and ask some questions on staff for direction from the board. And based on your direction, there may be some additional conditions of approval that are added, and of course can be revised by the board. And the applicant is here to answer questions when I'm done. And if there is not enough subsequent information enough to write conditions of approval, the applicant is willing to move the 120-day date to allow this to continue to the September 14th meeting if the result needs to be shown. So just briefly, HR 1005, the subject site is located on 13th Street as it terminates at the intersection, near the intersection of 13th and Washington. It's a vacant lot next to 519 13th Street, which is a designated building in the McLaughlin district. This is the applicant's July submittal of the site plan. As proposed tonight, we do not have a revised site plan, but the garage is slightly smaller and being brought closer to the house to stay away from the hill. And I'll show you some further drawings to indicate that. Up on the top left, you'll see the July submittal for the front elevation, and the larger one is the resubmitted front elevation. And the difference shows a wood siding on the front porch, and it shows a shed dormer instead of a pitch dormer. And the rock is removed. This is the side elevation. You see that the window configurations has changed. The board and batten siding was removed and replaced with shingles. This is the other side elevation. The configuration of the windows looks probably a stairway for the board and batten siding was requested to be revised. The applicant shows a transom and a 1/1 window. And the staff memo, I recommend that the transom be removed. Usually you didn't have the transom of the 1/1 for a second story in a residential. This shows the rear elevation, and what it shows the inset porch, which you'll be able to see at a better elevation, and sort of vertical siding, lap siding, horizontal lap siding is being proposed on the dormer part. This is showing a 3D model, and the person who put together the 3D model was not able to show the Divided-Light windows, so just know that this is for massing and not details. And this is showing the corner of the front and side elevations. The rear of the side elevation showing both the front and rear dormers. This is showing the rear, and also more importantly showing this rear porch set-in, and this is in the direction I will be looking from the board tonight. As designed, it really is a pretty contemporary rear porch, and I'd like to see a little more, maybe sturdier columns or maybe a rear railings or something to kind of bring it more compatible with this historic infill. Looking at Washington Street and driving down it and walking it and looking up, it's looking a pretty visible side to the house. It doesn't look like it's, far from view. So since this is a pretty visible elevation, I think some extra care should be given to this rear porch and this elevation. There was a question regarding, the pitch of the front dormer in comparison to the rear dormer. The rear dormer has a little bit less of a pitch to obviously allow more room, and kind of giving the direction to the board if they see this as appropriate, or does this create a dormer that's too out of scale. Carrie Richter, our assistant city attorney, brought that up as a potential issue, and on a staff level, I'm kind of torn, so I'm kind of looking at your direction on this. If the pitch of the rear dormer should match the front and not be as
Is there comment?
that match the rear dormer. So the rear dormer should not have as flat of a pitch. It takes the massing down a little bit. So I'm passing that question to the board. On a staff level, I don't see it as making the house inconsistent and incompatible, but yes, it would make it more compatible if the dormer was smaller.
You know what the pitches are from the front to the back?
And I'll let the applicant speak to that, because I was not able to discern that from the drawings. But the rear elevation clearly has a smaller pitch than the front. This is showing the two elevations from the garage, and the applicant needs to provide me the other two elevations, but this is what's been turned in. And this is showing from the geotech company what the exposed foundation would be by bringing the garage closer to the house. They can guarantee that there won't be more than 5 feet exposed foundation, and so they're showing.
But you're wanting less than 4.
Oh yeah, less than 4. Yeah. But they're fine with that condition of approval. So in the staff report, I recommended that the applicant provide all 4 elevations of the garage building and provide exterior detail specifications, such as the front door, all side doors, including the garage door, the exterior lighting, and the applicant has not been able to provide that this evening. So I don't have comment on the specifications. The conditions of approval, a lot of them are pretty standard, but I'll go through most of them. Of course, any pressure treated wood shall not be visible from any surface and needs to be wrapped. Any revisions to the approved exterior details, if they're approved tonight or at a future hearing, can be approved by staff, but on a staff level, they'll be based on what was initially presented and must be could be compatible with the architecture of the building. We have the traditional vent and roofing condition, number 4. Number 5 talks about all railings, decking, and stairs be painted to match the house while you're trimmed. Number 6, specifically the applicant utilized wood or fiberglass windows and wood or smooth 4-inch reveal cement board lap siding. I'd also like to amend this at the time of the approval, just to reiterate that any grids shall be exterior grids. I don't know if there's a wood product for some reason that has an interior grid, but I just want to be very specific about that. If divided light windows are being used, then you can have extruded exterior grids.
Attached grid onto the glass.
Correct. And not through the glass. So I don't know of a product that exists, but just to make sure, I'd suggest adding that. Number 7 is the garage condition. It sounds like they can meet it, but this is a good standard condition at the time of building permit, just to make sure that that actually gets built as proposed. Additionally, all retaining walls need to be reviewed by the board if they're higher than 3 feet or in combination. They're multiple of 3 feet need to be reviewed. It sounds like they will not be doing any retaining walls, so I'd like to keep this as a condition of approval just in case this project gets sold or it takes a while to be constructed. Number 10, the applicant still needs to turn in a geologic hazards review, and that's done by a separate process, and that looks at the slope stability. And of course, if any requirements of the geologic hazard overlay changes the design of this house, they will come up to the board. And so tonight, what I would like to reiterate, I would like the board to look at the pitch of the rear dormer, and potentially the rear porch, any conditions of approval for that, And I will bring the applicant up here, and the applicant can speak to any questions you may have, and then I can come back at the end and look at our options. One could be tonight, the board can come up with sufficient conditions of approval that they feel can meet all the needs for the new construction, or two, direct the applicant to return at the September 14th meeting with any additional information that's needed. On a staff level, I'm a little wary of approving an application with 2 elevations of a garage not given. The garages are pretty simple. I mean, we probably could write a condition of approval if we needed to, but I just want to give both of those options to the board tonight. But you could write conditions of approval for this, or you could continue it for 2 more
Are you
weeks.
requiring like anything on those other 2 elevations?
Well, I don't know. That's the problem. Not seeing what is being proposed. That's the problem when you don't.
Because if those sites are just solid, it's
Yeah. The question is, you know, with a 1-car garage, usually you can get away with not having a window, but initially they proposed a larger garage. So not seeing the footprint of where that garage is, and if it's going to stay that same
but this would be
dimensions.
okay. This garage. We have pictures on
Yeah.
it.
I think so. I think they don't have the,
The new garage is 18 by something.
yeah.
Oh, nice.
8, 14 feet maybe.
I don't have the dimensions on the garage door, but it looks, I mean, we have a maximum of 10 feet width on garage doors. So it looks like it's a 10, but I don't for that.
12
And-
by 18.
And these details will let the applicant speak, but
Yeah.
the design guidelines do say 8 to 10 feet for garage doors. Anything over 10 feet, they kind of have to make a case for it. So not knowing the dimensions, I kind of was holding off on my recommendations for the garage.
Okay.
And also not, you know, kind of be able to see it quite well from Washington Street. So
Is there the time to ask you a question? Looking at either of the side elevations that shows the dormer in the rear, is it typical in the McLaughlin neighborhood to have a dormer come down to the edge of the house like that?
well, I mean, there is. If you look at the rear elevation, there is some. It's not all the way down. I mean, there is still some roof left. I mean, of course, the farther you bring it up, the more compatible the dormer is. I mean, ideally you want your dormers away from the side, away from the bottom, and ideally the same front and back pitch. So the moment you start to stretch it, you start to get a larger dormer. But you know, if it's the question with this is it been stretched in so many directions that it's too big? You know, because it still has the roofing extends. I mean, that doesn't go all the way down to the edge.
It's a structural thing. It's a lot easier to build to that exterior wall
Mm-hmm.
than
I see them all over the city.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
you still got roof going around the perimeter.
Yeah. My question is more of a massing question.
Okay.
Are you treating the rear as secondary or just as important as the front?
Well, generally I look at generally all 4 elevations should be reasonably historic, and then when you have rear and side elevations that are more highly visible, I think that the level of design goes up, and I think these elevations are more visible because of where it sits and how you can see it from below looking up on Washington Street. And as you drive up Washington, you'll be able to see quite clearly because the landmark on 13th Street is pretty close to the house. And there's a pretty wide view corridor from Washington Street to new construction. I think if this was nestled in, there were no landmarks surrounding it, you know, it's a context issue for me, I think.
On the porch, if there was what is that called that goes around the front of the porch that it's part of
Illustrated or no?
Pony wall?
Yes, it has the
Oh.
side. If they were to make a slight pony wall that comes out from the house and then just over to the front door, do you think that would, with a column kind
I think it would go definitely a ways. I think as proposed, it just smacks too much of kind of new infill construction that you would see up on top of the hill.
Yeah, a pony walk would go on the side and then partially on the back.
And I think it can be pretty easily designed. I just don't, on a staff level, I didn't want to direct a specific
Right.
design solution, but I do think it needs to be treated to a higher level than is being proposed.
And you're saying they have no detail, the front door, garage door, lighting.
Mm-mm.
We don't have any of that. We're supposed to have that.
And there are applicants here today. Tonight to answer questions.
Does anybody else have any questions? Okay, can we bring them up? Thank you. You guys state your names, and are we supposed to have? City, where are you from?
I am Jim Small from Oregon City. I'm a builder and I'm representing Extreme Homes, and the builder is John Baranaga. Brian D'Agostine with Portland. I'm the draftsman on this project and do have an interest in historic design as well. So I'm hoping I can please you with what I draw.
And this is a bungalow plan. You guys kind of altered a little bit. Is that right?
That's true. Yeah. Extreme Homes built this plan on 40th and Hawthorne from that intersection in 2003. Maybe 10 building lots south of that intersection. Very, very well received in the neighborhood, and just a plan that we both have come to enjoy and want to fit into what we call just Main Street America. So some of the homes that I've been building in downtown Beaverton under a different name that's kind of the criteria we're looking for: historic style homes as well as true vintage.
Can I ask a question? The front dormer with the 4 windows, what's that room? Because I don't have a floor plan or anything.
That is the master bedroom.
Okay. So down the back, you've got probably a couple bedrooms, something else. I'm talking dormers.
That's right.
Okay. So you've probably got those inset, that front dormer inset with a different roof pitch, just to make egress with those single huns. Yeah. So you've got your roof pitch, which I guess is 812, and then you've got your shed dormer, and then you've got a lower pitch in front of those windows.
And so the question, I'm sorry.
My question is, if that's the master, so those windows are single huns?
Yes.
So they're probably 3050s to meet egress.
Meet egress.
So you're bringing that down purely to meet egress with that lower pitch in the front?
That's what I understand. Yeah. Yeah.
So then the windows in the back dormer, those are bedrooms, right? You've got a couple bedrooms.
That's right.
So those windows are 3050s.
Yeah. Minimum.
Okay. So you're able to get a little height because you pulled that dormer out to the back wall.
Right.
Yeah.
Have you considered using brackets like they did with the Craftsman style on some of the edges of the roof line?
Like referring to what they call as like knee braces,
Yes.
holding up the. Okay.
On this corner.
Yes. I did with my home in Oregon City, across the street from Park Place Elementary School. Brian designed for me, and that was just one of the components and style that we wanted to bring into it. We didn't put it on this house because we felt that was more of a craftsman element. I think all of it. Well, our goal here is a bungalow style to meet the criteria. So this is an old what we refer to this as more the old Portland style home. I don't know if that's a correct term for it as far as style goes, but we do try and avoid the craftsman style home even in craftsman neighborhoods. So perhaps this is a craftsman style home that we've altered to bring more under a bungalow style. If I can interject, from my understanding, a bungalow would be the style of the home, this, with the lower pitched roof and the nice wide footprint. The Craftsman is an architectural styling that can be applied over top of that. So the Craftsman includes really wide eaves, the knee braces, those dormer, or those gable brackets that were brought up. That wall on the porch might be a Craftsman theme. Those thick posts might be a Craftsman theme. But as far as going for bungalow, this would be a bungalow. Craftsman styling could be applied to it, but it's not necessarily done in this case yet.
The siding on the little piece of the roof that's showing next to the front windows, and as the roof comes down, is that going to be a different siding than the rest of the house?
Oh no, I apologize. It's my mistake for not getting that to the 4-inch lap. You're talking about that tiny little triangle in there? Yeah.
What's the pitch on that front dormer? You know,
Somewhere in the 412,
in the back.
and the back one is about 312.
Yeah, I don't think it was a big difference.
The only problem I see with this when I look at it is, I look at that front dormer and it just doesn't seem to fly with me. It's almost like if you brought that to a 312 and bring that roof up so that your 812 wraps around that, maybe. I don't know if I've ever seen a story-and-a-half Craftsman that has a roof element like that historically.
I could point out a few houses in Southeast that have it, but you're right, it's not real prevalent.
No, I mean maybe it's unique and that's groovy. I'm just wondering if you brought that roof pitch up so it's uniform all around, like a typical dormer would be, and you brought that up to the 312 to match the pitch in the back. You could then put flanking on these 4 windows. You could have them all look like they're single hunts, or you could actually, and I don't know if that's just, you can make those flanking ones casements, thereby reducing the height, saving you a little bit of money all overall. The 2 middle ones pictures the outside casements, you get your egress, which you could shrink down quite a bit, and then you've got that roof pitch, the 812 wrapping around, so it looks like you've got a real dormer coming out the back off the roof, and it looks a little bit more mainstream as far as the story and a half, and that would also make life a little easier for siding, weatherizing. It might simplify it. It might save you a little bit of money too. I mean, that's the thought. The other thing was where you got this side window with the transom. What is that room? Is it a hallway? Is it a bedroom?
It's a bathroom.
Bathroom. Yeah, that window's too tall.
Well, yeah, and plus the transom doesn't work there.
Yeah, I mean that needs to go, but that's a simple thing. But that would be my suggestion for the front. I think it would make that whole front look a lot more kicking than it does now. It's almost like you had this roof and you decided to add this in after the fact, and this is your only option. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, I think it's a great suggestion. I will leave here whether you required it or not. I would make the change.
I think it would look better. Then you can, but if you bring up that pitch to 312,
312 or 812?
Well, you shed it to 312 because your back one's through, right? Keep those sheds looking the same.
I see. Okay.
I don't have a problem with the back shed. I know it's bigger, but if I'm looking up, I don't think it's a big deal personally. But yeah, if you brought that up to a 3, then you look like a Craftsman story and a half that was intended. And I get what you're doing in the back. You want to max out that space.
I think what I did to make this a little easier on the builder was, rather than getting the roof pitches to be right on, make sure the plate height was at a standard standard dimension, 8'1", 9'1", and then brought the roof down on top of it.
Yeah.
So quite honestly, it's probably not a 412 in the front. It's probably like a 4.18 and 12. But who's going to know the difference?
Yeah, but if you can,
So when we say bringing it up to a 312, I'm wondering how you're asking that to be done. Whether it's I guess I wasn't clear. Are you asking to raise the plate height to something
you
non-standard,
gotta raise the plate height up.
or to drop it along the ridge and bring it down?
I guess what I'm saying is, if you can eliminate that front roof that's going in, and
The little one.
yeah, and
Okay.
make it 812 all the way around,
Right.
and with this shed popping out of that roof, whatever you got to do to make that work. If you got to bring your plate height up another, whatever it is going from 4 to 12, what that distance is, and over that distance it may not be bad, but you're going to be cutting these anyway.
And another concern I have too is that when you go shallower than 412, and it's kind of unavoidable on the rear dormer, but when you go shallower than a 412, then you have to do the double underlayment underneath the asphalt shingles, and you run into a
Depends on the
little
manufacturer if the warranty's voided below 312.
asphalt shingles. I haven't found anybody yet who does not require double underlayment
But
unless you want to do the ice and storm. Yeah,
Ice and storm keeps your warranty. That's it.
and we're talking about cost, which is now Jim's department.
Oh, sure, it costs, but it might be a wash, because if I'm suggesting this, you're having smaller windows, you're not having to inset and waterproof these funky insides that are going to eventually, all that could be a wash. So that's my suggestion. And I think what Cindy was saying is the back porch. If you guys could do a solid pony wall on, coming around in 2/3 so that it doesn't look so contemporary as what Christine was saying, you might solve all your problems. But that's just, I don't have a problem with the garage. I don't know. I'm not I think 2 elevations are sufficient. There's nothing going on the back. However, if the staff feels we need it, then we should.
Our garage, I think we are looking at a 10-foot wide door. I think we moved that size around. We played with that size on that garage from 20 feet wide to 16 to 12 to 18. We've bounced around quite a bit with that.
So what's your
Try to determine. Right now we're at 16.
How high? How high?
It's a minimum height, just enough to get our 512 pitch.
Not the door, but the whole,
Yeah.
So a 10-foot door with 3-foot sides, you just throw this panel in the front. And
Yeah, or we may enlarge one side, hold one side a little larger, rather than have that door right in the center. We may offset that door in the middle to have a little bit of a.
make it just designed so they're just regular brace panels and not alternate ones where you gotta have hold downs and all that.
With the continuous bracing method, they can be standard panels without any hold downs.
Yeah, unless if you do portal framing with the beam across.
No, we don't have to do portal
But
framing in this
I think
case.
you can go 3'4" or something without hold downs. I'm pretty sure.
We can go down to.
What has changed?
Yeah, with the opening height, I think in this case we go to 36 inches should allow us
I think
with the 85% opening height.
Yeah.
To do a 36 inch.
I think that's the new one for avoiding hold downs.
Right.
So we need the 16.
The 2 missing elevations on the garage are just solid lap walls. We haven't submitted those yet.
They're solid, right?
Yes.
So then the only other thing I'm seeing, for anybody else wants to tell me to stop talking, is we don't have a picture of the front door, garage door, lighting. You guys can bring that.
I did not. Yeah, it was up to me to bring that. I overlooked it.
Anybody else want to talk? What's that?
I had a discussion with Kara Richter, our city attorney, and she's highly recommending that we don't do that anymore. Leaving details to staff.
Because
It,
going to sue somebody.
Well, I think the idea is the goal with the land use approval is when a land use decision is made, everyone who leaves the city hall tonight should all know exactly what is being approved, is being built. And so, you can do conditions of approval that are really specific about what needs to happen, and the greater your conditions of approval, is less clean your decision is. And so that's just a recommendation of our attorney. It's something that you can't do, but
Well, we could also make this, we could approve this with conditions, but they would have to come back and present this as a Part B kind of thing. I mean,
Yeah.
these things should have been here tonight.
Yeah.
You guys should have brought this up tonight.
Yeah.
Because then we could have,
The
Right.
question is, is the board comfortable with a redesign of this? And if this pitch issue of the redesign, is the board comfortable with a condition of approval that spells out exactly what's done without seeing it before it's approved? Or does the board need to see what's redesigned at a future meeting? So that's the question.
if that was groovy with people, what I was saying, then you'd have to meet them again.
Mm-hmm.
I can tell you that we're not pressing to we have other projects that in Selwood and Westmoreland that have entered in since we've made the purchase and started this process. And we've had a lot to do, and it was my fault to not bring that. However, we could come back 14 days. It is really no trouble for us. If the board would like us to come back, we can make some additional corrections, show new roof line, dormer, so we can all the things that we're talking about. That we're happy to do that. It's really no trouble.
Maybe it's trouble for us.
Yes, maybe.
Maybe we don't want to see you. We want you to go and work and fuck your time. Yeah, I think, I don't know, does anybody want to ask anything else or have any other comments?
I think as long as you're not really pressed for time and you have to come back anyway, it would be a good idea for us to see it and finish it off in one fell swoop, as long as it doesn't put you behind schedule.
Yeah, I just want to. Yeah, I think most builders would be pressing to try and expedite this, and I'm just letting you know that it's just not a problem. We're not.
And if you're groovy with that, then we come back with these minor things, like 2A through D. Give you those details.
Revise the window
Yeah,
on the porch.
Porsche and, I don't know, how does anybody, do what I was saying make sense? Did what I make sense about that front shed?
It does make sense. From the inside, when you look, those windows, they're gonna be higher up on the wall.
Maybe, as long as they're, so here's all the things you gotta consider. One's egress and then your height. You've got so much height you're allowed, maximum, which I think is 43 inches or 44. So if you can take all that into consideration, maybe you keep your pitch a little lower if you're worried about plate and figure out what your egress is for a casement. I'm not sure what it is. You've got width and height, and it goes down quite a bit to get that. Is it 5 square feet or something like that? Yeah, so you put all those things together, come up with whatever that works. You know what I mean? So, does that? So that's probably what I was thinking. But do you need to make a motion on all this stuff?
Not really, because you're just going to continue it to the next hearing.
Okay.
So I would appreciate on a staff level a final site plan. So that if the garage has changed dimensions, and that'd be helpful for me.
Oh, did we see that? Would it be hard for you to draw the garage in its relationship to the house?
You mean like one level, like one elevation?
No, just kind of. I would like to see. I would like to see the perspective of the garage and the house.
Including it in the graphic.
Yes.
Like 3D graphic.
Nothing real,
Okay.
elaborate. But I just want to see the massing and how it relates.
Can you go to this real fast? Say something like that.
I think this is with our 3D children, it's easy to make a 3D model.
Yeah.
It's not easy, but I know how to do it.
But can you go to this page, please?
Is it beyond this?
Yeah, it's
Starting
the last
It's like the last one, I think. And then we'll at this. Yeah. So what's your scale here? Is it quarter scale?
And I apologize, meant to be less than 4 foot exposed foundation, so that was my typo error.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so quarter. So then you got 1, 2, 3. So you just backfill that back part of the foundation up to whatever you need.
That's right.
Yeah. Then you'd be fine.
Does the board know what a legal parking space size needs to be? so that that garage can be
That's
adequately
12,
sized.
isn't it?
Can you give me more context to the question?
A legal parking space, will the garage be considered to be necessary to be a legal parking space and to have appropriate depth in there, or is that not?
No, you only need to
Okay.
be able to have a space that's 8 by 16 on site for a car.
Okay. You got that even with your door. You're fine.
I mean, you need that for the driveway. You don't need the garage. to
Okay.
actually be parked.
Yeah, Portland's a little different in that regard.
What's the other thing?
We don't care where you park the car on your property.
Front lawn.
In the fridge.
Either
Okay.
way, but
Does anybody have any other comments before we make some suggestions? So, I guess the first one would be if you're amiable to change that front dormer, get rid of that funky roof. The back porch, create a pony wall that goes on the one side and on part of the back one. But maybe make where your door is on the back, make that opening coming off, 4 feet wide or something, bring your pony wall around just so you get a good comfortable width to come in and out. Get rid of the transom window on the gable end. Bring us the details, the garage stuff, the front door, the doors, the lights.
site plan.
Oh, a new site plan. And the floor elevations. The only thing I can think with the garage, if it's facing the back, like you're worried about the back of this, maybe that needs to have a window in it.
That can be conditioned once the board can see that on.
Okay,
Once you see it, that can easily add a condition.
okay.
And it's essentially even if you think it added in, if it's not clear, that can be really
I guess the big thing is number 2, A through D. On the conditions, front door, side doors, including any on the garage door, exterior lighting. So,
Okay.
But I really like house.
I like the color too, whether you meant it or not. So it's very cute.
So there's kind of minor things, but play with that front dormer and make it all. But
303 casement would meet. 303 casement should meet egress.
more than
More than, yeah.
So yeah, you might be able to. You just lost 2 feet of window that everything might work in.
So you'll be within the 44 inches of sill.
Yeah, and really, if the back one is a 312 and you said you're going to double felterize the storm, then the front one's smaller, and you're going to save it. It could all be a wash. So if you can do those things, come back. We'll make it go fast. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you guys.
You just need a motion.
Okay. So
September 14th.
well, somebody just.
A motion to continue
Yeah.
without the details?
Mr. Murphy,
I move that we, continue HR 10-05 until our next meeting on September 14th.
Ms. Hall? Mr. Basinger? Ms. Yates?
Aye.
Chair McLaughlin?
All right.
Passes 4-0.
Thanks, you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Go home.
time 3 staff updates before we leave tonight.
Okay. So we're done with that. Thank you very much. And we'll turn it over to you.
Okay, very quickly.
We'll only finish as quickly as you
I
make
will-
it finish.
The McLaughlin House is making some right-of-way, they're requesting a right-of-way permit for some fire line issues, and I received the extraordinary amount of documentation from the Park Service whenever they make changes to McLaughlin House that I will forward on to the board. Everything that McLaughlin House has ever done always needs maintenance repair. That's the reason why it never comes to the review board, because all they're doing is doing maintenance and repair. But just to keep you up to speed of what they're doing, I'll forward you all the documentation from the Park Service, but it's all staff approval. The fire line is being dug and replaced, and then there's archaeological monitoring and to the nth degree above and beyond everything that is we would
What do you mean by
require,
fire line?
like the actual water fire line that goes to the
Oh,
house.
the pipe that the sprinklers.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And then I believe they have finally the documentation for the tree that has caused all the fire line issues that will be removed or has been removed. So I'll check up on that. Second, Ms. Yates wanted more information on the Ermitinger House, and I contacted Scott Archer. He's preparing a update memo to the City Commission at their work session in September, and I will have a copy of that for our September 14th meeting if we want to discuss it in detail about the next steps the board may want to take. But I know he's still in negotiations with the Park Service, and he'll have an update memo for us and the City Commission in September. Finally, the rough draft or the final draft of the inventory RFP for our inventory project for this next year for sort of local government grants inventory buildings that are older than 50 years old for landmark status, potential landmark status, is currently being reviewed by our attorneys, and I'll be sending that RFP out in September. And so be ready for October to be looking at potential consultants to hire for that. And that'll be a winter-spring project.
Question, do you know the date and time of the city commission work session on the Ermitinger issue?
It is the following Tuesday, which I think is this next Tuesday. So that would be September 7th, I think. That's
So it's before our
yeah.
meeting. Okay.
So that's what he's preparing it for, and then I'll have it be able to put that on.
Do you know what time that they will be meeting?
They usually start right at 5. If you go online,
online.
you'll see the agenda online.
I have a question about the old Oregon City High School brick building that's on Jackson that is currently being used by Willamette Falls Church. They've heard of somebody who's built a ranch there.
Yes, that's correct.
Is that a temporary thing?
No, and actually that building is not designated. We've been
Really?
we've been working with Willamette Falls, and we treated it as a non-designated building because they needed ADA access. And so we tried to work with them to be the most appropriate we could without having to make them. You know, we work collaboratively with something that would meet their needs, but we were only making recommendations. So that did get approved, and that is a new ADA access ramp for the Willamette Falls facility.
Kind of ugly. Okay.
That's all I have.
So we'll probably have potentially 3 things these weeks.
Yep, and we will have Ms. Full's application, and then we'll have the Kozol's addition, and it came in the July hearing for the proposed kind of side elevation addition, and then there'll be the continuation of this application. And right now, while I've sent out notice for the preservation grant program, I haven't heard anything from anybody, so there will not be any applications for the grant program at this next hearing. And if there are no applications in September, then most likely the September meeting, and 2 weeks after the 14th will be canceled. Unless the board wants to have a work session item added to it.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
45 minutes.
Roger.